Okay, guys. Well, today I want to talk about something called the performance equation. This mainly pertains to training. However, I suppose you can actually apply this to quite a few aspects in your life. Um, it's really about psychological interference, this equation, and simply stated, this equation says that performance is equal to your potential minus psychological interference. Now, in terms of performance, what we're talking about when we're saying performance, well, this could be performance in an exam, it could be performance in a physical test. I mean, obviously, because I'm doing this for high performance training, this is mainly going to be related to, your physical training and stuff, but it does affect quite a lot of different aspects of our life. Your job, for example. Your potential, as far as this equation goes, is what you are potentially capable of doing when you're in a good state of mind. And the physical, psychological interference is basically anything that is getting in your head that's affecting your training. Now, unfortunately, the reason I'm doing this video is potentially because myself over the last month I feel like I've been falling foul of this, and it does actually make a massive difference. I mean, if you've been following my training sessions at all, you might have noticed that since I've done my last FTP test, well, not my last one, but the one prior to that on the 15th of the 1st, my training sort of seemed to have gone downhill a little bit, and I was a bit like, well, I can't really see why that is, because physically everything I'm doing, I know, because I've been training for so many years, has been on the money. So ultimately something else has got to have been in play, and that was basically highlighted the other day when I done another test, and I basically done a PB, and the only thing that had changed is because when I came out here and got on this bike, I basically decided to stay completely focused, really push myself, and I got a good result. And you know you sort of know almost when psychological interference is in play, because I mean, if you ever go down the gym, and you're thinking, oh, I don't know if I really feel like going down today, or you've got things that are on your mind. I mean, like for example, I mean, people demanding your time outside of your training, depending on how committed you are. I mean, you have to be quite selfish if you're going to be doing sort of high performance training, especially, and not let anybody put pressure on you to sort of say, well, don't go train tonight, because we want to do this, we want you to do that, and obviously that's when the flip side. Work demands, or can you stay back and do some overtime tonight, we need your help with this, we need your help with that, or even if you go home, sometimes it's, well, you're still thinking about your job, and, if you go straight down the gym and you're trying to do a good session and all you can think about is work, you're not going to be focused. Excessive noise in the gym, I mean, sometimes the amount of times I've been in gym and you get idiots just shouting their mouths off about nothing because they're basically looking for attention. That can distract from you. The heat in the gym is another thing. If you're feeling hot, it's quite difficult to remain focused, and that can affect you. Any relationship issues, arguments you've had, that's playing on your mind. Stuff that's on the news these days. I mean, I don't know about the rest of you, but I mean, some of that stuff is just, it sort of sits in the back of your mind, and you're sort of thinking, oh, I don't know why I bother sometimes. Social media. I mean, a lot of people spend, I mean, I don't really like to spend a lot of time on social media, and, well, I mean, I don't, and the reason I'm doing this is just to help other people. I'm not doing this for my own benefit, basically. People that, using the mobile phones all the time. I mean, if you're on the mobile phone when you train, at the end of the day, unless you're using that phone for, using like I do on the watt bike as for an app and stuff like that, having a conversation with someone on the phone or checking your texting when you're training, if you're pushing yourself hard, it's going to have a massive, massive impact on how well you're going to be doing, because one, you can't really be pushing yourself that hard and texting. On top of that, if you're distracted and you come off of, what you're meant to be monitoring, as soon as you've lost it, and it's basically too late. People that are at university at the moment, potentially doing assignments and stuff. I mean, obviously that's another thing, you're thinking, oh, I want to get finished here quickly so I can get home and get started on that, social engagements, or what am I going to be doing after I've left the gym tonight. And also, I mean, sometimes, quite a lot of the time, psychological interference is raised through self-doubt. I mean, people don't have confidence in their ability. And I mean, again, this psychological interference is almost like a vicious circle, because if you do a bad session, straight away you're probably thinking, oh, like I'm never going to be any good. And then next time you come down, that's playing on your mind again. Well, with myself, if I have a bad session, I mean, I've been doing this for so long now, I sort of know really, a lot of the time whether something's been on my mind or not. Because, for example, when I'm doing a watt bike session, I know that if I'm focused on that dial all the time, then the chances are I'm going to be getting a reasonable result out of it. But quite often I just for a few seconds I just come off the dial, think about something else, and as soon as I've looked back round, I've lost quite a few watts. And by then, it's a hell of a lot harder to pull this back. And it's the same with running. If you're on the treadmill and you're trying to keep a certain pace and that. I mean, obviously the treadmill's running underneath you, so it makes it slightly easier, and it does in terms of pedaling on the bike and that. Swimming, it's exactly the same. If you're trying to track someone in the next lane and you sort of lose focus, and they can be half a body's length ahead of you before you've sort of noticed again, so you really have to be on this all the time. Now, in terms of how much does this psychological interference actually affect your performance? Well, I mean, to be honest, it's almost impossible to quantify this because it's not something that can be measured. I mean, however, if you're used to doing a certain session and you're used to doing a certain level, and all of a sudden, you just get a really crap sort of result, a lot worse than what it should be for no apparent reason. And you can look back after doing that session and think, well, yeah, well, to be honest, I was probably not thinking about what I was doing. Then that is obviously going to be quite a major thing. And I mean, certainly as far as, when I've been using a watt bike, I mean, if I'm just not thinking about what I'm doing, I can be probably 20% down on what I could normally do. I mean, that's a absolute crazy amount, really, So on top of that, I find that with people that are less experienced, quite often these poor performances, they can really start to, cause them to completely get themselves negged out about it. And then also the other thing as well is with people that are less experienced is they think, oh, well, this training program I'm not doing at the moment is obviously not working, so I will decide I'm going to go ahead and change my training program. When in fact it might not be anything to do with your training prescription that's actually wrong. It's just because on the day you've not been focused, and that's where experience comes in. And if you're not an experienced person, then possibly having a coach that knows you well, or a personal trainer is going to benefit from you. So really this video is just to basically say, be aware that when you go down the gym, if you're really looking to be on point all the time and you're pushing yourself, then you've got to be in the right headspace. And if you're not, then you are going to find that your performance is going to drop. But it's just being aware of that. So that's it. All right, thanks guys.